Yeah, so in this video I want to talk a little bit about clarity, intentions, and clarity of the aids and so on when you're training. It's important not to sort of ride around willy-nilly, but to have a clear idea of which pattern you want to ride, which gait you want to ride, which balance, more uphill, more horizontal, more long and low, tempo, stride length, and so on. You have to make deliberate decisions in a way. Even if your decision is, I want to just find the tempo, rhythm, stride length, and so on, in which the horse is the most comfortable, and then I'll cultivate that, and that'll become our home base. But you have to have a very clear idea of what you want to do. Otherwise, the horse will have no idea what you want to do if you don't have an idea. Right? And it helps with horses very much if you basically visualize what you want to do. If you have this clear inner picture that you have, you can send that to the horse, right? And this will already influence your seat and your aids, right? And in terms of the aids, you have to, be aware that an aid tells the horse to change something in what he's doing. So you have to have a clear idea of what it is you want to change. Do you want to speed him up? Do you want to slow him down? Do you want to supple a certain area? Do you want to move sideways? Do you want to turn? You want to raise the energy level, lower the energy level. So, and when you know exactly what you want to do, then that dictates which aid you're using, because each aid has its own sort of field of expertise or its area of influence, and it also dictates in what phase of the footfall sequence you can give the aid, right? Because you cannot move a leg sideways when it's on the ground and the entire body weight is on it, or you cannot connect a leg to the ground and the weight when it's in the air. So you always have to find the right moment for the aid, the right aid for that body part that you're trying to influence, right? And then you have to try to be consistent, that you speak the same language all the time, so that there are patterns that are predictable for the horse, so the horse recognizes what you're doing. If you do everything completely different every time, then of course the poor horse will just be confused, right? So you have to have this clear mental image of what you want, which area you influence, that dictates, like I said, which aid you use and in what moment of the footfall sequence, and then you just practice that, refine it, so that your aim gets better, so you're hitting the right window of the footfall sequence more and more often. So the horse builds some positive experiences and patterns and habits, and so this consistency in your language, in your approach, is very important, because it helps the horse to learn faster. It gives them security too, when they realize there are certain rules, and these rules are always the same, they don't change, also in terms of what's allowed, what's not allowed, that's important, that stays consistent, so you don't allow the horse to do something rude one day and the next day you beat him up for it, right? So that would be extremely confusing for the horse. So you want to be consistent in what you allow, consistent in what you demand, consistent in what you won't put up with, because young horses, they will sometimes do rude stuff just like kids, and so then you have to show them that some things are allowed, some things are not allowed, and some things are expected, And if you have that basic framework, you can still, have room for negotiation when you feel like, oh, my horse is tired today, he's not able to focus well, or he's, it doesn't have the energy to do more strenuous work. So then you can compromise on the length of the session, the intensity of your exercises, and so on. But there are certain things that should always be installed, like gas, brake, steering, you know. So safety, things that have to do with safety, you know, horses are not allowed to bite, they're not allowed to kick, they're not allowed to run you over. That's really basic stuff, right? That should always be the same. Anything that could become dangerous is not, but other than that, you can always have this conversation, a little bit, even a little bit of a negotiation process with the horse. If you ask something of your horse and the horse says, oh, do I really have to? I'm so tired today. Then you can say, okay, I'll make it easier on you, or let's try it once and then, you know, we'll finish, or take a break, or something like that. So it's not totally rigid. That's important, right? So this consistency should not end up being completely inflexible, right? So you need to be able sometimes to compromise with the horse on certain things, but safety, you know, must never be compromised, of course. So it's sometimes a bit of a fine line between the consistency and the flexibility, you know, on the other hand. So you want to be consistent enough that it's predictable for the horse and that he kind of knows the rules, he knows what's expected of him, he knows what is part of his job that he has to do, and he needs to know what he's allowed to do, what he's not allowed to do. Always maybe also think a little bit longer term. You know, it's like, if I allow this now, what does that mean longer term? Or if I don't allow this now, what does that mean in the longer term? So you make the right decisions. Do I let it go? Do I insist? You know, do I pivot? Do something else? You know, all these decisions that come up in every ride, every day, basically, you know. And well, we don't always get it right, of course. Sometimes we make the wrong decision. But if you have these sort of guidelines in your mind, if you have that strategy framework in your mind, then your chances of making the right decision go up.